So I'll just start from the beginning, like we just
Okay.
started, but we've been talking. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter if that shows on the
Yeah.
recording.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, thanks, Joe, for agreeing to talk about the 11.2. And you are just the perfect person to discuss this because you've got such a intense 11.2 experience,
Yeah.
but it's really turned around for you,
Yeah.
because you've got wonderful spiritual talent as well of the 9.9, but you
Yeah.
definitely went through it with the 11.2.
Yeah.
And as people know, the 11.2 is the life and death polarity, and it often involves, various losses in our life, and that experience of transition. You have to get used to the fact that in this lifetime things come and go, but the biggest thing really is life in itself, life and death. And you've got quite a story around that, haven't you?
I have, yes. So the 11-2 energy when I was a child, I suppose for me, I always had this really bizarre feeling that there was no such thing as death. I used to have every night when I stayed at my grand's on a Thursday, I would lie in bed. I don't know if you've ever tried to do this. Try to imagine absolute nothingness, and I just couldn't ever do it. So I had this knowing that there was no such thing as death. And then I also had a fear of not death for myself, but losing loved ones. So
Oh,
particularly my gran, who I'm
that's,
like, she's my world. And
yeah.
I always had this panic, probably up to about, probably when I found you guys, to be fair, I had this inbuilt fear about losing my gran. And then, yeah, for me, the the actual life death aspect of this energy on the 16th of June 2018, when on holiday in Croatia, I suffered a brain hemorrhage and I died. And I went from doing burpees, so high intensity workouts,
Yeah.
and my stepdad basically said, well, they were calling me, gone in 60 seconds after the film, because I was literally gone in 60 seconds. Um, I felt the pain on the left hand side of my head here. And what was really interesting, the fitness instructor, she came over to me because I'm usually like a wrecking ball running around doing everything. And she said, Jo, you're dehydrated and you need a drink of water. And I remember looking at her in the eyes and I just said, Alana, I'm dying. I knew I could feel myself going. And then everything just morphed into colours and distorted sound. And then I went down onto the floor, but then I wasn't in my body anymore. And it was the most surreal feeling ever because my granddad came and my granddad died in 2009. And he came and he presented to me exactly as I remembered him. And he basically said to me, Jo, this has to happen here and it has to happen now, but you're going to be perfectly okay.
Yeah.
And I was, miraculously. My
Yeah.
great granddad was there as well, and my great grandma one. But yeah, I could hear what was going on, and I could see what was going on, but I wasn't a part of me anymore. I was a part of everything, and it was like my granddad was waiting with me while my body was kind of brought back to life, and then I went back into it. But I don't remember coming back into it fully until the next day evening. And I remember first thing that came back for me was my hearing, but it was so I could hear like I've never been able to hear before. I could hear through walls. I could hear for what felt like miles, and so much so that I really struggled with integrating back into my physical body because I didn't know what belonged to me and what didn't. So, for example, I was describing to my mum that I'd been in an induced coma, and my mum was telling me that that actually wasn't me, it was the guy next door, but one to
Yeah.
me in intensive care. So I was kind of able to hear everything that was going on everywhere. Um, and then I was probably in and out of my physical body. And to try and explain this to people, it wasn't so much out of body experience. I was literally had a choice of being in it or being out of it. So when my mum came, she was only allowed for an hour a day. I would go back because I could see her, even though she was half an hour away, getting on a bus in at the outskirts of Zagreb, where she was staying. And oh yeah, it was just, for me, it was 9-9 energy, this part, but literally being plugged in. And then obviously coming back and knowing that we really don't die at all. We don't die at all. But for me,
just let me check what the actual medical interpretation of this was. What's happening from the medical perspective? What were the doctors seeing?
The doctors were, I was really fortunate because I was on holiday with my parents who were well off, and the holiday I was on, it attracts a lot of doctors and people who've got money, because my mum had money, and I was literally surrounded by British GPs, paramedics, etc. But in terms of what the surgeon said in Croatia, bearing in mind I was blue lighted 3 hours across country before they could give me any kind of medical help whatsoever. He basically explained to my mum that there was no brain damage whatsoever, but he was unsure of how much recovery time I'd need, because they didn't know if it had affected my speech, movement, etc. 10 days later, I walked out of hospital with absolutely nothing wrong with me. The doctors sent me to a physio team, because the doctor, who spoke very good English, said she couldn't justify sending me home when you consider that 10 days previous I was lay dead on the floor and I'd just had major brain surgery. They released me from intensive care to a normal ward after 7 days, and I had a laugh with the guy who come round with medication, because they wanted to give me medication for headache, sickness, etc., but I just didn't need it. They wanted to give me medication for sleeping. I didn't need it. I kind of refused it. So on day 3, he came round with his cart, rattling it, and he said, "Jo, can I tempt you to anything?" And I was like, "No, I'm fine, thank you."
Ice cream.
So they, it was literally like the ice cream lady, but with tablets. So I was getting up and about, and I was walking down to the shower, sorting myself out in the shower. The doctor in the end said that because of the seriousness of the injury to my brain, that they needed to send me to the physio team, which is like the team over there who do a full assessment of you before they release people to see what kind of care they need. So they came along, they had me doing all kinds of things, standing on one leg, talking, basic movements, etc., all the checks on the physical body, and they just turned to the doctor and said, "There's absolutely no reason why we need to keep Jo here." So they had to let me go. And then I went back to resort because I wasn't fit to fly, and I was swimming a mile a day in an Olympic swimming pool. Absolutely fine, no issues.
Sorry, I interrupted you earlier on because you were talking about the 9/9s, which is the other interesting part of this. Very often when people have a near-death experience like this, when they come back, they do feel a greater sense of connection. So it's interesting that you have the 9/9, which is, very much, when embodied, it's very much about being plugged into the strength and power of your soul. So I know that, up until that point, things had been really changing in your life because, for people who don't know Jo's background, go back another 10 or 15 years and she was actually working for the police. So things had already changed. You got into the kind of holistic therapies part and spiritual path, but that just whopped up a level, didn't it, when you came back?
Massively, It was almost, I'd spent, as you know, I think it was over 12 months I've been with the college by then, wasn't it? Doing my spiritual life coaching, soul plan, soul transformation therapy. I think I did that before I died as well. And I'd also trained in Reiki and angelic Reiki and crystals, because I use that outside of the college. And I'd got to a point where I'd set up my own holistic healing business.
I've just got to interject here that coming on our courses doesn't entail that you're going to die. Quick
No, it definitely doesn't. You'll be reborn, but it doesn't mean you'll die. But I'd set up my spare room, but I was playing at it if you like, because I had such a high paying job in the oil industry,
Yeah.
and I couldn't see how I could transition from that to doing this and be able to support myself financially. But when I died, it was literally like the universe got hold of me by the scruff of the neck and said, look, Jo, everything you've come to realise is real. Now get back there and get on with it. So I did. I came home, I left my job and I set up my business now. And I've always struggled with doubt, self-doubt. And even though it still gets me from time to time, there's just no stopping me now. And I feel like really, really protected, because obviously I know there's no such thing as death.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Jo's now just recently become a soul plan teacher as well. So you're going to be bringing that connection through on that level too.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Jo.